seocham tróna. Is ócáid an speisialta é agus tá áthas orm a bheith an chun an chuir láthair I dhéanamh. Is é lá féile bríide atá I gceist freisin. Mar sin, lá féile bríide faoi lá féile bríide honna ghaobh go léir. It's gas the way we say in Ireland that it's the first of spring. Today, my eye. Anyway, Anne Enright is the first ever laureate of Irish fiction. It gives me great pleasure to introduce her today on this special St. Bridget's Day. Anne Enright is a gifted and prolific writer. She only started writing full-time in 1993, and since then she has given us many books, including The Portable Virgin, The Wig My Father Wore, What Do You Like, The Pleasures of Eliza Lynch, Making Babies, Stumbling into Motherhood, that's slightly different to the novels and the short stories, The Gathering, which was the book, won the Booker, was a Booker winner, Taking Pictures, another collection of short stories, and Yesterday's Weather. Anne Enright has the ability to keep the reader interested, not because she is an expressive reader, which you will shortly see for yourselves, but because she sculpts fascinating characters who live on the page and long after. But you don't find yourself saying about one of her characters, she's just like Gina from The Forgotten Waltz, a novel set against the backdrop of the economic collapse in Ireland. Or saying about another character, she's just like Veronica from The Gathering, the Booker winner novel. A dark novel about abuse and suicide and much more than that. Gina is as memorable as any other famous female character from world literature. But with Enright, there's no train to fall under, or no poison as a punishment for Gina. Enright's characters are never typecast. I have her down as AE, out of laziness to write. So every time I come across AE, I say, well, that's Anne Enright, but so I'll try not to do that today. AE doesn't offset any brashness that Gina might have by giving her a sweet gingham side to her nature. Gina does not fall out of character once in the entire novel, The Forgotten Waltz. Okay, it's hard to imagine yourself high-fiving Gina, but it's very hard to forget her. She could wear a Michael Kors handbag. She wears other people's husbands. She moves in a set that go from Chardonnay to ice wine. Gina, with her sharp tongue, her caustic humour, her desire for Sean, her lust for Sean, her need and greed for Sean. The affair in the novel is relentless. The pace of the novel is even faster. The writing is crisp and flawless. Anne Enright said in an interview, writing a novel is like getting a herd of sheep go across a field. If you control them too much, they resist. If you control a book too much, the book is dead. You have to let it fall apart early on and let it start doing its own thing, she says. She ploughs on until a certain point. Then there is always a shift. This shift is an extra essential ingredient that moulds one of her novels together. The shift applies equally in her riveting short stories. Only in her short stories it's more like a quick clatter. That's how you know you're gripped. You're in, or she has you on the line. She knows how to begin stories well. She knows how to end stories well. She knows about the dislocate that happens sometimes in the middle, that splicing is given back to us by way of an often intriguing storyline that is set in different countries or different times, like in What Do You Like? Maria wonders, who am I really? The disquieting element has its draw for the Enright reader. Through it, we are better able to view some dodgy corner of our own psyche. What lies beneath is what comes to mind when I start off on another Enright book. She has this uncanny knack of tampering with the ball bearings that connect the head with the heart. Or with the heart with the head, as I've written. She doesn't just tamper with them. She throws them in the air and lets them fall wherever they may. Or at least that is what she might have us think. Either way, her strong woman characters are always in charge. You can drop a stitch in an Enright book and pick it up later without losing out too much. Her acute intelligence is evident in her seamless prose, so much so that you think there's no plot, and where is this thing going, and where is that stitch I lost away back? Then a few short sentences with no honey of any kind puts us back on the straight and narrow. We see the power of her imagination. We see too how she can spare her words and halt us when she needs to. She doesn't give good mundane. Alice Munro says, you may use that, Anne. I give you that, that's my gift to you. Alice Munro says, the complexity of things, the things within things, just seem to be endless. I mean, nothing is easy. It's the things within things in Enright's writing that we have come to admire. All I need are the words, Veronica says in The Gathering. She thinks it's true, but it's not true at all. All she needs is the truth, but to get to the truth she has to pass out fear, years of fear. Me and Léamh telling stories about the family, like they were all made up, says Veronica. The novels and short stories have lost and found in them. Only it's never things that are lost, it's always people. The Gathering is challenging and brilliant. Veronica rehearses to herself just to get her story right. What she saw, what she thought she saw. Her methodology is compelling and frightening to read. Her endless rehearsal makes you wonder about her fragmented self. Anne Enright has her baton out, conducting the Veronicas, the Ginas, the Marias, the Graces, but not a train in sight. We keep coming back for more Enright, whether it's the absurdity in The Wig My Father Wore or the richness in her sparse, poetic, well-written prose. I don't know. When Enright's characters go into the vortex for a little spin, we remain awestruck in anticipation of where the fragments may land. Anne Enright has far more control over her characters, making and breaking, than she might realise. I'll just give a little quote by Angela Carter. Reading a book is like rewriting it for yourself. You bring to a novel anything you read, all your experience of the world. You bring history and you can read it in your own terms. At the end of a brief introduction to Yesterday's Weather, a collection of short stories by Anne, which is actually a great collection because it is 19 years, it was written over a period of 19 years, and it includes several of the collections of short stories. Anne Enright herself says, "What I seem to be saying, a little to my own surprise, is that the person may change, but the writer endures." We are very glad that she has endured. Please welcome Anne Enright.
Tá an áthas ar an bheith mhuir láthair inniu agus an nuair seo lácha lá éile brite Hugh Galway. When I was asked who I'd like to do the introductions in Galway, Rita Anne sprung immediately to mind because of her wit and her attention to the line on the page. But also I think there's a whole... Rita Anne is one of those women who don't want women to be one way or the other. So they let a woman character be whatever she is without drawing back and saying, oh, I don't think that's what we want to hear. And for that freedom in her rewriting as a reader of my work, I am entirely and completely grateful. So thank you very much. I'm going to read some mundane things, you know. I was thinking just there about what I lined up for you, and these I have some good women. I mean, good women. So the first thing that I'm going to do is from a short story. The Irish Times asked for short stories about the economic crash. So it's hard to write about something, but anyway, I this was called Legends of the Fall, and I wrote 3 short stories about love, which is in a little trilogy, which is a short story in itself. So I'm going to just read the third one for you, and then 2 pieces from the next book, just to see how they feel in the air here, or in the air at all. And I'll be reading for about 20 minutes in all, so I hope that's all right for you. She went to see her father in the home, and he was sitting up in bed with a cup of tea on the trolley table. The air was very warm and completely clapped out. That was the first thing that hit her. There weren't 3 molecules of oxygen left in there. It was like inhaling sock. The next thing she noticed was the bright look in his faded old eye, because that was the way the dementia took him, strangely. It turned him into the opposite of himself. "Hello, my darling," he said. Maybe he didn't know who she was. Lara. He did know her, or at least he knew her name. She pulled the big chair around towards the bed and sat down. "How are you, my love?" he said. My love. This was new. This was more again. Her father never called her darling, never had. Not when she was small, not when she was sad, not when her mother died, not once. It just wasn't one of his words. "I'm well, Daddy. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?" "Ah," he said. He smiled a little and let the question drift. "Would you like your tea, Daddy? Will I bring that across for you?" She was up and out of the chair again, pulling the trolley across the bed. The tea looked neglected, perhaps even cold. Her father made a face when he finally got the cup to his mouth, but then he sucked the tea out quite greedily and it was gone. He felt for the saucer as he set the empty cup down, and she remembered that distances were a trouble to him now. He lived a little by touch, with the sight in one eye gone. So she touched him. She took his hand and remembered the hands she knew as a child, brown from the sun with their mysterious collapsible veins. "That's a great bit of weather," she said, and he turned from her to the window. The sky was a summer blue with white and ragged black clouds, the black smudged where they turned to falling rain. "Yes," he said. He didn't go downhill at a regular rate. It was steps and stairs. He'd be fine for a while and then very agitated. And when he came out of the agitation, he'd be at a lower level where he'd stay calm for a while. There were a few weeks when he was very disturbed, roaring and shouting, and that was hard. No one liked the woman who ran the place. She was too pragmatic. She seemed to enjoy it a little. They gave him something called Ativan, and that was very painful for them all because the drug was like tying him physically to the bed. But then they reduced the dose, and there he was, back again. Or there was this man who called her darling. There was a tap on the door, and a little glimmer of the old Francis Mulvaney came through when the carer put her head round to say, "You want a hot drop, Francis?" It was Benjamin, one of the best of them, Benjamin from Uganda, with beautiful old-fashioned English, a face bursting with goodness and good health. Sometimes Lara thought she could just ask him to look after her too, that she could just bring him home. But there was a twitch of distaste from her father, and Lara couldn't help thinking, "That's what you get, you old bigot, in your old age. That's life's little joke for you now." And of course she regretted the thought immediately, though there was no escaping it. Her father had been all her life a man of strong opinions, and many of them wrong. When Benjamin went back to his tea trolley in the corridor, her father checked around him to see that they were indeed alone. Then he mouthed something at her and ran a finger across his throat. "Sorry?" He slashed at his throat again, then hissed the word a little louder. "Priest." "Oh, Benjamin isn't a priest, Daddy." He gave her a high, sardonic look then, and turned as Benjamin came in with the tea. "Thank you so much," he said. "Thank you, thank you." "You're most welcome," said Benjamin. It could be worse, she thought, her father doing the full Cyril Cusack, sitting up in the bed like an old bishop. "Goodbye now, Father, all best." After the door closed, he sat for a while. Then he saw the tea in his hand and he drank it with the same pulled face and the same greed as the last cup. He set the cup down. "So tell me," he said, "how is everything?" "Hanging in there," she said, "just about." "Good," he said. And Lara was suddenly bitter because things weren't great, actually. And her father would never know this. Even if she told him her troubles, he would forget them before 10 minutes were past. And it occurred to her there was a great freedom in this. She might say anything at all. She might tell him the truth We're fighting all the time, Daddy. Or, I haven't slept with him in 2 years, Daddy. She could say, oh, Daddy, if only you died when the market was high. Because Francis Mulvaney was a great believer in the market. He'd gone in there hell for leather, saying, wait until I'm gone and then you'll see. And now the market was not high, and the man in the bed was not gone. And he would never know how wrong, just by staying alive, he had proved himself to be. You're looking well, he said. Thank you, she said. A little old, he said. I hadn't expected you to be this old. Well, she said, that's the way of it. That's right, she said. The home was costing €750 a week under the fair deal, and this is what she got in return. A man who forgot to call her stupid and called her darling instead. Cheap at the price. A man who called her Lara because he had named her Lara, because in the deep, freakish, unknowable past, her parents sat through Dr. Zhivago once and walked out of the cinema holding hands. She lifted his old hand and kissed it. I'm 47, Daddy. My goodness. Can you believe that? His skin was very white. Are they putting cream on you, Daddy? Does Benjamin do your creams? He didn't answer. He lifted his other hand to touch her hair, or no, to point at something over her shoulder. Look, they said. What? Said Lara, slightly spooked. She glanced behind her to see nothing there. A peach-coloured wall, a ribbon of paper along the dado wall, an apricot and jade green. I'd rather be taken out and shot, Lara thought, than be looking at that as I died. But her father's face was happy, blissed out. Look at your wings, he said. So that's that little bit of sad. I read that to a bunch of students once and they looked at me like, oh, what's that about? So here's another good one. The Green Road has 4 children who grow up and have these very interesting lives in all over the world, in Africa, New York, Dublin, and in West Clare, in the unnamed town in which it's set. Constance, one of the children, stays at home and looks after everything and has children in the town she grew up. And then the mother, Rosaline, who's a bit of a difficult person, announces, like King Lear, that she's going to sell the house and they have to come back for Christmas to sort her out. And they bring their inner child back to meet their outer mother, as I'm beginning to say. Anyway, this is just a cheap and cheerful bit of mundanity, actually. This is Constance, who's doing the Christmas before they all come back. And I'm going to read a bit where she does her supermarket shop, and then I'll do a bit further on from the end of the book. Okay. I don't know where to begin with this, but I'll just do the supermarket anyway. I might ring some bells. The next morning she went early into Ennis. It was 10 a.m. on Christmas Eve and the supermarket was like an apocalypse. People grabbing without looking and things falling in the aisles. But there was no good time to do this. You just had to get through it. Constance pushed her trolley to the vegetable section. Celery, carrots, parsnips for Desi, who liked them. Sausage and sage for the stuffing. An experimental bag of chestnuts, vacuum packed. Constance bought a case of Prosecco on special offer to wrap, and it's 2005. Sorry. Constance bought a case of Prosecco on special offer to wrap and leave on various doorsteps and threw in 8 frozen pizzas in case the kids rolled up with friends. Frozen berries, different ice cream. She got wine, sherry, whiskey, fresh nuts, salted nuts, crisps, bags and bags of apples, 2 mangoes, a melon, dark cherries for the fruit salad, root ginger, fresh mint, a wooden crate of satsumas, the fruit cold and promising sweet, each one with its own sprig of green, dark leaves. She got wrapping paper, red paper, napkins, sellotape, and more out of habit now the children were grown, packs and packs of batteries, AAA, AA's, a few C's. She took 5 squat candles in cream-coloured beeswax to fill the cracked hearth in the good room at Ardevon, where no fire was lit this 10 years past, and 2 long rolls of simple red baubles to fill the gaps on her mother's tree. She went back for more sausages because she'd forgotten about breakfast. tomatoes, bacon, eggs. She went back to the dairy section for more cheese, back to the fruit aisle for seedless grapes, back to the biscuit aisle for water biscuits. She searched high and low for string to keep the cloth on the pudding, stopped at the delicatessen counter for pesto, chicken liver pate, tubs of olives. She got some ready-cooked drumsticks just to keep people going. At every corner, she met a neighbour, an old friend. They rolled their eyes and threw Christmas greetings, and no one thought her rude for not stopping to converse. She smiled at a baby in the queue for the till. "I know," she said. "Yes, I know." The baby considered her fully. The baby gave her a look that was complete. "Yes," she said again, and got the curl of a sweet, thoughtful smile. All this kept Constance occupied until the time came to unload the contents of her trolley onto the conveyor. The baby held itself so proudly erect, the young mother underneath it looked like a kind of prop. She looked like some kind of clapped-out baby stand. "You're doing great," Constance told her. "You're doing a great job." The bill came to €410. A new record. She thought she could keep the receipt for posterity. Desi would be almost proud. Constance pushed her trolley onto the walkway and the wheels locked cleverly on the metal beneath them, and she was happy, happy, happy as she sank towards the car park. She thanked God from the burning, rising depth of herself for this unexpected life. A man who loved her, 2 sons taller than their father, and a daughter who kissed her still when there was no one there to see. She could not believe this was the way things had turned out. Her feet were swollen already. She could feel them throb hot in the wrong shoes. Constance bumped the trolley off the walkway, set her trotters thumping across the concrete of the car park. It was 11:30 on Christmas Eve. In the pocket of her coat, her phone started to ring, and by the telepathy of the timing, Constance knew it was her mother. "What is it, darling?" she said, remembering as she did so that she had forgotten the Brussels sprouts. "He's still asleep," said Rosaline. For a moment, Constance thought she was talking about her father, a man who was not asleep but dead. "Well, don't wake him," she said. Dan, of course, the brother. She meant Dan, who was jet-lagged. "Should I? Or maybe. Do, yeah, get him straightened out." Dan is gay. There was a pause from Rosaline. "Straightened out. You think? Have you everything?" said Constance. "I don't know," said her mother. "Oh, don't worry." "It's a lot of work," Rosaline said with a real despair in her voice. You would think she'd just spent an hour in the insanity of the supermarket, not Constance. "But I suppose it's worth it to have you all here. I suppose. I'd be sorry to see it go." She was talking about the house again. Any time she felt needy now or lost or uncertain, she talked about the house. "Right," said Constance. "Listen, Mammy." "Mammy," said Rosaline. Doesn't like the word mammy. "Listen." "Oh, don't bother, I'll let you go." And she was gone. It was Rosaline, of course, who wanted Brussels sprouts. No one else ate them. Constance stood for a moment blank behind the crammed boot of the Lexus. You can't have Christmas without Brussels sprouts. Sometimes even Rosaline left them on her plate, something to do with cruciferous vegetables or nightshades, because even vegetables were poison to her when the wind was from the northeast. "Oh, what the hell," said Constance. She slammed the boot shut and turned her sore feet back to the walkway and the horrors of the vegetables section. Then over to the spices to get nutmeg, which was the way Rosaline liked her Brussels, with unsalted butter. And it was a good thing she went back up, because she had no cranberry sauce either. Unbelievably, no brandy for the brandy butter, no honey to glaze the ham. It was as though she had thrown the whole shop in her trolley and bought nothing. She had no big foil for the turkey. Constance grabbed some potato salad, coleslaw, smoked salmon, mayonnaise, more tomatoes, litre bottles of fizzy drinks for the kids, kitchen roll, cling film, extra toilet paper, extra bin bags. She didn't even look at the bill after another 15 minutes in the queue behind some woman who had forgotten flowers, as she announced, and abandoned her groceries to get them. After which, Constance did exactly the same thing, fetching 2 bouquets of strong pink lilies because they'd no white left. She was on the road home before she remembered potatoes. Thought about pulling over to the side of the road and digging some out of a field. Imagined herself with her hands in the earth, scrabbling around for a few withered spuds, lifting her head to howl. Back in Okhavana, she unpacked and sorted the stuff that would go over to Ardeven for the Christmas dinner. Then she repacked that. Then she went to Rory's room, where the child was sleeping off a hangover. Constance took off her shoes and climbed onto the bed behind him. "Oh, fuck," he said. Your own fault, said his mother, as she spooned into him with the duvet between them and the wall at her back. Ah, ma, he said, and flapped a big hand over his shoulder to find a bit of her, which happened to be the top of her head. But Rory was always easy to hold, easy to carry, and easy to kiss. And there, in the smell of last night's beer and of his rude good health, fretful, lumpy Constance McGrath fell asleep. So the Christmas dinner doesn't go well. I won't tell you why Constance has actually forgotten, but there's a little fight. Christmas dinner doesn't go enormously well, and Rosaleen, who's still busy selling the house and from under her children who no longer live in the house, but you know what I mean, decides that she's had enough of them all, and she goes out leer-like for her walk, which is along the Green Road, which is a road... a road above that goes from Ballinahown to above Fenor in the Burren, and it's green because it's no tarmac on it. And she passes as she goes. Rosaleen was the daughter of a chemist in the town. They were well got, the Considines, and they thought very highly of themselves in a way. And she married slightly beneath her. She married a man from out on the coast called Pat Madigan, and it's his land that she passes on the way out to the road, which she's had planted with pine trees for the grant, the few grand a year. Yeah, okay. And this is a kind of where the book flowers a little. It's one of the more lyrical parts in the book. Yes, and out the gate she was so cross the car drove itself. They went for miles down familiar roads until they found her own stands of dark pine. They bumped past the house where Pat Madigan was born, the little door painted in flaking layers of green over red over blue. They drove right past all this, Rosaleen and her little car, through another stand of trees that were her trees, horrible and dark. On and on they went until they came to the edge of things. Then the car stopped and Rosaleen got out. The sea was huge for her. The light, gentle and great. The fields, indifferent as she walked up the last of the hill. But she got a slightly sarcastic feel of the ditches. There was no other word for it. Sprinkles of derision, like the countryside was laughing at her. Presences. At the gate beyond the last house, where the tarmac road turned into a green road and the sheepdog turned for home, she looked back on the valley of Dara, solemn and dark now with the flaggy shore at the sea edge of it. Graves and dolmens there, and ancient roads and gateways to nothing from nothing. A couple of houses were lit up for Christmas, and the blink of the lights a glimmering from this distance. There was a little ruined church down in that place, with a curse in the name of the man who built it, too terrible to speak aloud. This she knew from Pat Madigan, who took her walking along these uplands with her little dog in the summer of 1956. He talked more in those days and weeks than he ever did after, about curses and the like, pishogues, the fairies on the mound of Cruchatty Hawn, and the people lost in the scrubby, treacherous ground below it. He talked about the foxes behind Knock-On's mountain, the 17 ancient forts between here and Slieve Elva, the goats that lived in the hazel scrub. He told her the depth and beauty of the cave called Powell na Gree, the 2 Englishmen who went down there with ropes and lamps. He pointed to the place where the 3 townlands met, out Dara, Ballinahown and Crumlin, a gap in the cliff that belonged to none of them, called Labba na Hain Vo, the bed of the one cow. There was a story, he said, about that cow and the end of the world. Then he laughed and told her a story about a heifer he had once, who came into heat with her head stuck in a big bucket, a tub almost made out of blue metal. The handle was up over her poll, and whatever way she managed it, and the bull was working her, the pair of them walking the field with the bucket swinging and banging, until she came into a standing heat, and he mounted her. And the sound out of her then, he said, I'm surprised she didn't deafen herself in the bucket. There was no stopping him. He pointed to a house where a man killed himself by hanging on a rock overlooking the sea, where the ghost of a hungry man was said to sit, turning to stare at passers-by. He talked of a place miles away where a woman kept her daughter chained in the hen house, and a woman whose house was full of money sent to her by her sons in America. He said there were babies born in one house that never saw the light of day. He said the women of one family in particular took their babies back into themselves as cats did their kittens, and it was important always to marry out in a place like this if you got the chance. And she was his chance. He did not say that he loved her. He said that if she would have him, a fine woman like her, unencumbered and free, with her own money and no one to stop her, if she would make her choice and choose him, then he would worship her with his body and with his entire soul until the day he died. Foolish, but true. That is what he said. And that is the way he saw the land, with no difference between the different kinds of yesterday, no difference between a man and his ghost, between a real heifer and a cow that was waiting for the end of the world. It was all just a way of talking. It was the rise and fall in the telling, a rounding before the finish, a flourish, a shiver. And it was for her. He had saved every detail up for her alone, as though every rock and tree awaited her coming for its explication. And when she laughed at him, he only agreed with her. If I'm a fool, he said, then let me be a great fool and not a small one. There was no turning him down. And when he entered her that first time and every time subsequent, it was a sacred kind of pleasure he took. She was sure of it. My own Rosaline. Pat Madigan worshipped her. And he did not tell a lie. He wanted her for the money she had, for the fine house and the children he could get out of her. He laughed at her talk and then he ignored her talk. But there were times, even in his last days, even at the very end, when he looked at her with a pride so keen it was almost sinful. My virgin flower, my flower of flowers. Somewhere along here, that is where the first kiss happened between them, her little dog sitting down for them to finish, looking out to sea. She'd married beneath her. Even the dog seemed to indicate it by the indifferent set of her head. My life of life, my saint of saints, my dark Rosaline. And ha, she said, because she'd had the pleasure of Pat Madigan for 40 years. And ha, because he was dead and she was still alive, up here on the green road. Years since she had been kissed on the mouth. Years. Thank you.